Hi, my name is Neil Demery and I am your reading writer. In the last video we read chapter 4 of Visions of a Watering Eye, and at the end of the council meeting Tara asked Spring and Bridget to join her in her room before she wanted to ask them some more questions. And her questioning Tara's questioning of Bridget led her to be totally convinced that Bridget is the one of gold who will rule the oceans. And with that, chapter 5 of Visions of a Watering Eye. A large hand with 2 gold rings was arranged palm down, with fingers spread on a rich marble tabletop. Halfway up the forearm was another hand, which was holding the first firmly to the surface. A deep voice echoed through the dining room. It must be made clear that there are consequences when one doesn't live up to one's obligations. I like you, Frank, and I would like to give you another week, but really, I mean, what kind of a message would that send to my other clients? It angers me that I am forced to resort to such barbaric measures. Suddenly, a ball-peen hammer crashed down 4 times in rapid succession. The first 3 strikes mangled the last 3 fingers of the displayed hand, while the 4th just missed the index finger and crashed into the tabletop, cracking it to the edge. The unseen owner of the hand screamed in pain. "You can let him go now, Lenny." The grip on the forearm was released and the mangled hand was quickly retracted from sight, marring the intricate marble veining with 3 long smears of blood. As disappointed as I am in you, Frank, I am even more disappointed in myself. I'm afraid that I let my generosity get the best of me. In my quest to allow your 4th finger to go unscathed, I have broken my beautiful new table. Look at this table, Frank. Do you have any idea how much work goes into an exquisite piece such as this? Finishing a piece of stone like this is the culmination of generations of the artisan's craft. Do you know what an imported Italian table costs these days, Frank? $7,000. My bad judgment and your unreliable nature has cost me $7,000. Do you think that is fair, that I should have to pay for your discretion, Frank? A quivering voice racked with pain answers, "No, Dan, it's not fair at all." "Well, what do you think we should do about it, Frank?" "I think you should let me pay for the table, Dan." Clap of hands followed by a loud chuckle is heard. Well, what a generous offer. I was sure that we could come to some sort of understanding. The same rate of interest okay with you, my friend? Sure, Dan. Excellent. Tell me, Frank, do you know why I didn't break your last finger? Because you're a fair guy, Dan. Well, that's true, but you see, more than that, I want that good finger to remind you to call me every Friday so we can arrange your payment delivery. It just wouldn't do for me to take away your dialing finger, and I really don't want to have to come after and find you again, Frank, because just like a caring mother, I worry. I believe that our business meeting is concluded. So, you have a nice day, Frank, and give that beautiful daughter of yours a big hug and a kiss for me, okay? I'll do that, Dan, and thanks again. The sound of footsteps faded, followed by the sound of a closing door. As the vision of the tabletop starts to fade, the deep voice is heard again. After Frank pays off his loan, kill him. A man only gets to make Dan Tanner look bad once. As the vision fades to black, a distant sounding voice is heard. "Daniel, you said you wanted to see me?" Daniel's dreaming mind was brought back to the present. "Of course, Lazarus, please come in." Daniel liked spending time in the engine room of the great ship. Long ago stripped of its nuclear reactors and other unstable components, Daniel liked the feel of the vast area. And for him, it also had the most foreign look, which he believed best foreshadowed views of his past life. The area also offered a practical side, as its many turns and passageways offered numerous avenues for both attack and escape. Daniel was nothing if he wasn't cautious. The visions of my dry life are coming to me with more frequency and clarity. I believe our time is drawing very near. How many recent crossings have there been? There have been 7, Daniel. There should have been more, but 2 were weak. Daniel responded with a look of contemplation. Such is the way of our world. 7's a good number. Do you see potential in any of them? It's still early, but at least 3 have the makings of good officers. Excellent. Tell Tag to hurry them along as quickly as possible, for our time is short. The report from Char is that outside recruiting is going well? Yes, Daniel. We have brought in over 40 troops since the last full moon. Do any of them show any signs of having crossed? Several, Daniel, and Tag has been working with them. Sharks, like all of the higher ocean races, are populated through both procreation and life crossings. Transients, as with other races, these life crossers possess the most developmental potential. When one crossed into the mermaid race, they were closely watched and helped through their transition period. When a shark crossed, he was on his own. Only males crossed over into the shark world, and they would float down in a semi-conscious state into an area that the sharks called the Fallen Crater. The location of the original Fallen Crater was unknown, as the race was not keen on passing along their knowledge to the next generation. They were largely a nomadic population who would follow a particular food source and feed upon it until it was extinguished, and would then move on to the next. Fallen Crater was basically a ceremonial location, taking shape whenever the school decided to stop for a period. It was not until the advent of Daniel that this group of tiger sharks adopted an orderly hierarchy and took up residence in one location. Presently, the crater was just over a small rise off the carrier's port bow. It was a small area enclosed on 3 sides by ancient volcanic rock, and it was always guarded by sentries whose only purpose was to see that the newlings did not fall prey to scavengers. Though the newlings were watched, their transition was not to be interfered with. Sharks were firm believers in survival of the fittest, and those who could not cross on their own were weak and unwanted. Their blood was not destined to taint the powerful gene pool. The newlings were left to survive on their own, but they were watched closely by Tag. Tag was neither a large nor powerful animal, but he possessed both a keen mind and eye. As crossing facilitator, he closely observed the newlings as they endured their transition periods while looking for any signs of strength or weakness. The transition period for a shark was a brief one, usually lasting from 3 to 6 days. After the newling's body and breathing system had finally formed, Tag would watch to see how aware they were and how quickly they started to search for food. Small fish, usually mullet, were herded toward this crater, and Tag would observe the newling's movements. He watched for signs of aggression and desired to see intelligence, movement, and quick strikes. If the initial test was to Tag's liking, the new sharks were allowed to leave the crater and begin indoctrination into the shark society. If he was not satisfied, a fighter would be sent in. The fighter was a shark who would confront the newling and attack quickly. More often than not, this attack would result in the death of the newly formed fish. But if he survived, he was allowed to move into his new life. One of these attacks was just about to begin, as Daniel and Lazarus swam up behind Tag. "What seems to be the problem with this one?" Daniel's voice boomed from behind. Tag did not see them coming and turned with a start. "Daniel, I'm sorry, I did not see you. This one's transition was not smooth." He violently struggled against the changes, and when the mullet were brought in, he showed little interest. "Perhaps he's just not hungry yet," Daniel said as he moved toward the new fish. "Call off your fighter, Tag. I will test this one myself." The battle-scarred fighter did not have to be told, and he quickly backed away from the Newling. Daniel swam into the area and got nose to nose with the Newling before he spoke. Most new sharks are ravenous after their crossing. Why did you not go after the mullet? The Newling was smaller than Daniel, but still possessed above average size for a tiger shark. He showed no fear as he assessed the situation before answering. I did not feel that feeding at this time was in my best interest. I thought it better to observe my surroundings for a while. My mind is clouded in strange pictures, and feeding would only further confuse my wits. Daniel was now very interested. Pictures in your mind, really? What sort of pictures? I do not recognize the thoughts. I see beings moving about on dry land. As strange as these sights seem, they are somehow familiar. Daniel turned away slightly before continuing. Interesting. So you could no doubt grab a mullet any time you wished? The answer came without hesitation. No doubt. The leader of the clan was closely assessing the Newling. Well, my friend, you're either very confident or very stupid. Suddenly, the Newling sensed something coming up from behind him. He turned on a dime and executed a sharp counter roll toward the sea bottom, barely avoiding the teeth of the fighter who had circled to his rear. The fighter was taken aback by the speed with which the Newling escaped his advance, and even more so when he spun and rocketed up with a counterattack to the soft underbelly. The fighter tried to spin away, but it was too late. The Newling had bitten deeply into his vitals, and he felt life rapidly leaving his body. The fighter took a moment to gaze in amazement before turning and slowly swimming off to meet his death, with his bloody entrails rippling in the current behind him. Daniel was delighted with the display. Excellent. I take it you are satisfied with the results, Tag? Most certainly, Daniel. Let this be a lesson to you, Tag. Observe more than just the overt. Look for the hidden thought behind any action. Daniel turned his attention back to the Newling. Have your memories provided you with a name? The young shark thought before he answered. The thought of William stays in my brain. A fine thought it is. From this day forward, you shall be known as William. Learn your lessons well, and learn them quickly. I see great potential in you, William. Perhaps you will be a commander in the future. In time, you may even replace Lazarus. What do you think of that, Lazarus? Lazarus was stunned, but much too intelligent to show his emotion. If he is the stronger, then so it shall be. A diplomatic answer, to be sure. I will leave you now, William, with this thought. In less than a blink of an eye, Daniel exploded forward and up, flashing his great white teeth and taking out a chunk of William's dorsal fin. Just as quickly, he was back in his original position. William's young life had not equipped him to handle an attack of such quickness and ferocity. But he stood his ground and strived to show no weakness. Daniel resumed speaking. Don't get any ideas that you will ever replace me. Better sharks than you have tried, and they ended up passing out with my excrement. Go now, and report to Elias for training. We shall talk again soon. Yes, Daniel. It is my vow not to disappoint you. With that, William turned and swam toward the carrier. They watched until he disappeared into the murky sea. Daniel turned to Lazarus. Observe him closely and teach him well. He has more potential than any I have seen since yourself. You think like me, my friend. You see that there are no accidents. What I said to William about replacing you was nothing more than a motivational tactic. You are my #1 lieutenant, Lazarus, and I expect you to be by my side throughout the final victory. It will be my duty as well as my pleasure to do so, Daniel. I was sure of it. What is the news of that soft-brained prophet of ours? He was scheduled to return moons ago, and I have much to discuss with him. We are expecting his arrival at any time, Daniel. Rune's task is a difficult one. To fill the voids in his prophetic vision will not be easy. Tiger Sharp's reputation precedes him, and to get the prophets of other races to share information will be difficult at best. Many will believe him to be an advanced scout for a larger force, and they will flee. Daniel was sounding agitated at this report. It is inconceivable to me that a race as strong as the Tiger Sharks would allow their history and prophecies to dwindle as they have. This practice has come to an end. But for now, we must grub among the filth of the oceans to provide that which has been lost. I need to know the prophecy in its entirety, not just the parts supplied by Rune and those bitches across the ridge. But Daniel, our numbers are far superior to the mermaids. We should defeat them quickly and decisively. Daniel turned quickly on Lazarus. There is more than a numbers game, you fool. If this mermaid child is the one, there will be factors in play that we have not contemplated. And if the prophecy truly is universal, we are talking about more than a skirmish for the battery. We will be facing a world war. Look beyond that which you see in front of you, Lazarus. You must look into the distance and spot the pitfalls, recognize the opportunity, and seek the potential for greatness. As long as I draw breath, I will not allow some woman to rule the world in which I live. It is my destiny to rule, and I need every scrap of information to know how best to proceed. Lazarus, you've been a loyal and trusted subject, and I need your zeal and experience. Don't let this newling outthink you. Use William as a tool to better yourself. Strive to open your mind and see the big picture. Let us adjourn to the drilling area and speak with Elias. I have some new battle tactics I wish to employ. I will not chaotically march into battle as we have done in the past. To rule a world will take organization and discipline, both of which I intend to see ingrained in every shark mind under my command. Take heart, my friend, for together we shall rule an empire.